Erev Tov Gesher Haziv. Good morning in Zion National Park in Utah. Greetings. My name's Wayne Firestone. On behalf of all my colleagues around the world from the AIFL and Friends of Israel, it is a pleasure to be with you here on Sunday for a real treat. And we are bringing you arts and crafts to your very own computer, your Zoom room, your home room, your dining room, wherever you are watching us from today. We promise you a real treat. And we know we have people calling in. One of our early welcomes is actually from Linda in San Diego, who we know is on hurricane watch at the moment. So Linda, we wish you Godspeed and hope all our friends in Southern California and throughout the path of the hurricane will be safe. We hope we can provide you a really terrific distraction today with something that maybe many of you don't even know about is happening. So we want to make sure you know, we want to make sure you tell all of your friends about the second annual Biennale of Arts and Crafts that's taking place in Tel Aviv as we speak. There's music, there's festivities, there's gatherings that you can become a part of, and we're going to introduce you to it today with two very special friends. Before we start there, I want to give everyone in the audience an opportunity to share something personal in the chat about a craft that you cherish, that's in your own home, perhaps something maybe you're looking up at. I'm looking up in a clock that has the Hebrew letters for Ahava and a beautiful painting of flowers and a Hamsa around it. So even sort of very, utile things like earrings or things we wear or others can immediately turn into an art and craft that has meaning and we can share with others. And boy, are you in for some real mind-blowing innovations in art in our program today. So if you want to share something in the chat, a little bit about an arts and craft that's special to you, we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll keep an eye on where you're calling in from. Thanks from Miriam in Washington Heights. We'll be looking to see how our audience, and by the way, we would love to know if you've actually visited the Biennale yet. And if you haven't, we want to tempt you to come visit in person as well. So let me first introduce to you Henrietta Eliezer Brunner, who had the chutzpah a few years ago to think that maybe Israel's arts and design scene needed to be seen on a different kind of stage, on a completely different level. Henrietta is familiar with having studied the classics and born, I believe, in Athens, home of the classics at one point, and indeed has brought to Israel first in her role, in her current role as senior curator of craft, as well as the curator of the Glass Pavilion. But boy, that's like the tip of the iceberg about what we're going to talk about it. She was the chief co-curator for the first Biennale in 2020. It opened right when COVID was shutting everything down. So maybe it wasn't something on the radar screen for everyone, but boy, has it grown this time. Henrietta, I know you have a big smile on your face now because you're in the middle of it. Maybe you could say a couple of words just about what it means to you that this wasn't a one-shot deal, that this is a...
It was not, it's a commitment even from our point of view in the museum to offer a platform for these creative spheres that are so dynamic and so special in Israel. And so by combining all the disciplines of craft and design together was something that I will relate also in my presentation, but it was very much timely and topical at that in this stage to do. So yes, I look forward to share with you a little bit of this Biennale.
Thanks so much. We're really excited to see your presentation in a moment. I want to introduce your co-panelists, Rakefet Kenaan, Rakefet is no stranger to the quirks and interests of the American arts audience, having studied at Cooper Union. She is indeed a special person who's going to share how arts and crafts and design have been built by a very interdisciplinary team. When we first talk about trying to explain the breadth of and the ambition of this Biennale this year, we knew we couldn't sort of look at everything, but there was this one very specific project, Chiluf Chomerim Collective, that has brought together artists and researchers and designers, people from very, very, very different disciplines together to create something together. It's a creative, funky team. I don't know how to describe it any other way. And Rakefet, I know we've done programs about Shankar College and the fashion industry in Israel and the exciting things that are happening there. I know you're a part of the faculty there as well. So tell us a little bit just about how you got roped into this and why you think it's significant now that Israel is sort of showing off its craft and design in a way that is also sort of inviting people from lots of different disciplines and backgrounds to come and join.
Okay, I think that Israel is a very creative place, okay? Very, very creative, maybe because it's such a tough place, a lot of creativity. And it's, in a way, it's kind of like flooding us because it's such a small place and so much creativity. So it goes everywhere you go, everywhere you look, you feel it. And I think the Biennale really shows it. It's just extraordinary works of all different materials and stuff. And it just goes on and on and on. It seems endless.
Well, I think that is the perfect segue without getting into the specifics of Chiluf Chomerim, as well as the Hebrew lesson that you've promised us for those of us that are at Ulpan level Hebrew to really understand the multiple levels of creativity and innovation involved in your specific group. Henrietta, I'm going to start with you because just to purely understand what this thing is for many in our audience who are hearing about it for the first time, and even those that have heard about it but haven't been able to visit in person, we're going to start with your presentation, give you the opportunity to lay out the whole thing, and then we'll move on to Rakefet's presentation and hopefully have some time in the end to share any questions with the audience as well. So everybody sit back. I think you're going to enjoy this very much.
Thank you very much, Wayne, for this introduction. And thank you, everybody in the American Israel Friends League for giving me the chance to take you through the second Tel Aviv Biennale of Craft and Design that is currently on view in our museum, in MUZA Eretz Israel Museum. Now, with your permission, I have to jump in my presentation. Something. Can you? I'm sorry. Stop share. One moment. I have. Can you?
There we go, I think.
Yes?
Yeah.
We are okay? Only myself. Okay. I hope something technology. Okay. So before we dive into the exhibition, I would like to start with a little bit of background. What we see here is an aerial photograph of the museum complex covering an area of 42 acres in the northern part of Tel Aviv, consisting of different pavilions and structures built around an archaeological site, the Tel Kasile, spanning 3,000 years. And the museum opened to the public in 1958 to house wide range collections of the founder of the museum, Dr. Walter Moses, originally focusing on archaeology, ethnography, and local history. The MUZA museum has evolved into a multidisciplinary museum concentrating on different aspects of local material culture. During the last 5 years, the museum has embarked also in a major renewal process that includes the construction of new exhibition spaces and an expansive park that will be open to the general public the coming months to further enhance the museum's connection to the city and its residents. The museum's collections are best known for tracing the history of different crafts from their origins to their contemporary manifestations. And these modern expressions were given special emphasis, to your question, Wayne, through a series of biennials held over the last 2 decades, concentrating each time to a different craft medium, such as ceramics, glass, jewelry, fiber, treating them as autonomous and specialized disciplines. In 2020, the Tel Aviv Biennale of Crafts and Design launched a new format that embraces a more open and inclusive approach, blurring the boundaries between material languages in favor of an interdisciplinary dialogue. This shift enabled us to capture the dynamic landscape of these creative spheres in all its breadth and materialities, and present them as an expanded field of creativity, free of demarcations and distinctions.
Henrietta, if you could try to go to full screen on your version, it'll probably help the audience see the slides.
The thing is, I will stop sharing and do it again because I did that before.
If you want, we can share it and move the slides just so you can continue with the presentation if you want.
Because one moment. Because I did that. I do it again. Can you see it?
Yeah, we're still getting that window, and we're not full screen yet.
My goodness. And okay, stop sharing. And I'm going to my screen. I open it up. Yes.
You can just move those toolbars.
And then it must work, I hope. Is it okay now?
Can you move those toolbars out of the way just so we don't see those blocks?
Which bars? Stop. No, I don't.
Okay, yeah, if you're having trouble with it, I think we'll put the slides up and you can just narrate as you go.
Okay.
So if you just stop the stop share,
yes.
we'll do our best to play them as you're going.
Yeah. Wow. And we did that several times.
Okay, there we go.
I was in the middle of telling you that I wanted to point out that the exhibition is the result of a collaboration of 3 Israeli curators: Nir Armat, curator of the exhibition in the Rothschild Gallery; Tomer Sapir, curator of the projects presented outdoors and of the academic labs program; myself, curator of the dialogues held in the permanent collection pavilions. And the Biennale also hosts about 20 foreign artists selected by the Biennale's international guest curator, Dr. Kevin Murray, based in Melbourne. The theme of the Biennale, so it's the next slide with a big foot, centers around the question, what is the measure of men? Based on a dialogue written by Plato between Protagoras, the great sophist, who excelled in the rhetoric art, and its manipulative power to support any position regardless of its veracity, and Socrates, who believed that one should strive to reach a higher and objective truth through rational and moral thought. In this dialogue, Protagoras claimed that man is the measure of all things, a statement that introduced the concept of relativism, suggesting that each individual's perspective is a valid measure of reality. Living in such divisive times, where public discourse has become so polarized, and people who have different opinions are not able to talk to each other and cannot even relate to the same facts, the Protagorean doctrine offers a compelling perspective, denying the existence of an absolute universal truth to which everyone must adhere. This approach gives room for multiple points of view, equally valid, even if they are contradictory. So in the context of the Biennale, the measure of men, or more precisely, the measure of all humans, is explored through the lens of craft, art, and design. And by converting the Protagorean statement into an open-ended question to all participants, the Biennale seeks to reflect perhaps on the scope, the implications, and the impact of the creative individuals in the face of the pressing challenges our world confronts today. So the Biennale showcases about 270 works in 8 different exhibition spaces, indoors and outdoors. And today I will try to give you a sense of the different venues and also talk a little bit about the curatorial strategies and the rationale of the exhibition. The Bigfoot, this giant foot by Sasha Serber, is the first piece actually one encounters when entering the museum. The striking contrast between its monumental appearance and its actual construction of styrofoam, a cheap and industrially produced material, creates a tension between appearance and reality, rendering it some kind of an imposter in an environment that venerates the authentic and the genuine. The title of the work is the name of Ramses II, Ozymandias, but makes a direct reference to Shelley's beautiful poem about a traveler from an ancient land describing the ruins of the colossal statue of this mighty pharaoh that aspired to be greater than God, now reduced to nothing more than a broken spectacle, only his feet and his broken head in the sand, half buried in the sand. And forgotten and insignificance, it serves as a commentary to the human lust for greatness and power. Going to the next slide. Can you go to, okay, this is a game I did myself. It's in a different area, but again, all the works can somehow interact between them, even if they are presented in different spaces. And the measurement is something, again, that it is so subjective, how we perceive our measure. And Dina Berman's work, which is microscopic, it's only 1.5 centimeter, but yet she asked this philosophical question, whether the impact of an artwork depends on the volume and the amount of the material used. The next slide, please. Curated by Tomer Sapir, the outdoor projects are mostly large-scale installations of sculptural or architectural character that interact with the environment, spaces for living, for resting, or gathering, offering immersive experiences through sound, light, or movement, and closely linked to science and nature. So if we see those pink islands by Rinat Itzhak and Alon Shikar, which are an interactive sculpture created in response to the social distancing we experienced during the pandemic, encouraging shared sitting and spontaneous encounters. Its form is inspired by neural networks that, although composed by autonomous independent units, they operate as a unified system. So symbolically, they embody ideas of collaboration and synergy. On the other hand, on the left of your slide, drawing inspiration from cultural depictions of divine revelation, Tom Love sought to create an environment that evokes a sense of the sublime through use of solar mirrors, artificial and natural light, enhanced by the symbolism of the structure of the observation tower. And Nobuya Yamaguchi on the upper part of this slide, this beautiful silver cocoon sculpture that is shaped like a cocoon, created an intimate meditative space by using the sound of the evening cicada in Japan. So visitors are invited to enter this cocoon, and enveloped in soft fiber inside, they are kind of ensconced in some kind of organic body, let's say, and they can symbolically undergo a metamorphosis. The name of the work is Metamorphosis. The next slide. In the course of the Biennale, we are hosting one after another 3 academic labs, the master program of industrial design in Bezalel, the fashion design department of Shenkar, and currently now we are hosting the last lab of the exhibition, which is the ceramic workshop of the industrial design department of the Holon Institute of Technology. And those labs offer a glimpse behind the scenes, if you want, into research-driven practices and problem-solving processes addressing real-world challenges. The next slide. The exhibition in the spacious Rothschild Gallery, curated by Nir Armat, which is the white cube of the exhibition, has been intentionally left without any permanent architecture, generating an open feel that reflects the discursive nature of the show. The works are organized into 4 thematic chapters. So you see here the 4 images: language and plot, body, cult, time and place, meant to be visited in a non-linear manner, continuing and complementing each other. The curator's intention was to create a multidimensional space where issues related to identity, belonging, faith, gender, place, and language become relative and dependent on the viewer's point of view or on the viewer's perspective, in accordance to the theme of the Biennale. Amir, the next slide, please. Amir Nave's works from the series Age of the Slave presents a powerful commentary on an existential state and the vain quest for the essence of life triggered during the pandemic. Showcased in 2 different settings, Stanley is a surreal phantasmal creature that embodies an enslaved humanity awakening from a state of slumber amidst the ancient relics in the ceramics pavilion on your right. Whereas in the Rothschild Gallery, split between 2 thematic chapters, it embodies the concept of a masterless slave who, surrendering to its fate, continues its futile journey, leading an empty canopy and an empty divine chariot, although being aware that has led to its self-demise. The next slide. In the chapter Time and Place, that resonates with the local context, Shira Gepstein's work features 7 recognizable Tel Aviv buildings: the court in Shaul HaMelech Street, the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, the clock tower in Jaffa, the Great Synagogue in Allenby Street, trapped in each other into a disordered and chaotic structure, and suspended from the ceiling, they create a sense of impending collapse, symbolizing the perilous state of Israeli society and the clash between the various structures and institutions that have shaped its 75-year history. The next slide. The integration of contemporary works into the collections has provided a fascinating blend of historical context and contemporary expression, revealing the ways in which ancient cultures, traditions, and archetypal concepts can inform contemporary creativity. Within these spaces, and we get to the next slide. And we get to the next. Within these spaces are interlaid, no, one before. It's one, yeah, thank you. Within these spaces are interlaced the works of about 20 artists from all over the world, curated by Dr. Kevin Murray, as mentioned before, who remarks, what sets these artists apart is their personal journey, which has led many of them back to their cultural roots and working with their communities, often after acquiring a Western education. Rather than blindly copying the past, these artists reinvent traditional skills and practices that were repressed or forgotten during the modernization process of settler colonialism. So what we see here is one of the masks or the masquerade costumes of Bubu Ogizi, who is a Nigerian fashion designer and artist. And her masks represent deities and spirits believed to bring healing and balance to the world. Although she works with traditional weavers from various parts in Africa in order to sustain the local communities, her masks are made of unconventional materials, new materials like plastic sweet wrappers or plastic embroidery, as a way to demonstrate that tradition can interact and coexist with modern influences while retaining its cultural influences. The next slide, we see a South African ceramic artist, Andile Di Alvani, who grew up farming and looking after his father's cattle herd, developed a strong connection to the land and to his Xhosa culture that resonates today powerfully in his works. His sculptural works, all made of ceramics, through which his ancestors invoked spirits to guide us through life, and his ceramic tablets feature pictograms that Andile created in order to communicate essential concepts and values of the Xhosa people. The next slide. So the rich and complex histories of the different locales function as dialectical fields of references, fostering multi-layered connections that can amplify or subvert meaning. Pugi's Naim teacup dancing ladies, for instance, who literally invade a showcase where a unique Philistine cult stand depicting a dancing ritual from the excavations within the grounds of the museum, yes, from Tel Kasila, evoke a sense of continuity in cultural expression over time. While the next slide, Daniela Saraya's video work, shown alongside a collection of Egyptian heart amulets that were placed on the mummy of the deceased, explores the intricate connections between our physical bodies and our emotional selves through the symbolism of the heart. It's a beautiful video. I don't know yeah, doesn't matter. I cannot activate it. Other artists, we can go to the next slide. Other artists make connections between the historical artifacts and contemporary issues, like Ruth Patir's multi-channel video installation, where ancient artifacts featuring in an iconic textbook of archaeology, animated with motion capture technologies, engage in degrading behaviors associated with toxic masculinity, such as bullying and catcalling. So all these artifacts are actually activated, yes, to address modern day concerns of gender politics. The next slide, please. Or else, in Galia Armeland's reinterpretation of a 19th century courtship scene on a porcelain coffee set from the collection, transposes us to contemporary Israelite reality by replacing the original figures with a young couple dressed in hilltop youth attire, resting on a displaced olive tree, and accompanied by a Kenaan dog, one of the oldest breeds, which is the national dog of Israel today, confronts us with contentious narratives of belonging and displacement that define the Israeli experience, challenging idealized notions about innocence and domesticity associated with such obsolete scenes. Armeland raises questions about identity, connection to land, and the pursuit of ideals in a region marked by conflict. The next slide. Sometimes the connections are more playful. The tennis balls that made their way to the museum grounds from the adjacent tennis courts are treated as artifacts of contemporary material culture, showcased next to precious antique glass vessels. As you see to the left of the slide, the Idan Friedman and Nama Steinbuch surveyed the grounds of the whole museum and literally like excavated them, yes, and placed them, elevated them to the status of museum artifacts, challenging the ways in which we attribute value and significance to historical objects, questioning what we consider high or low culture. The museum's architectural layout, and we can proceed to the next slide, with separate materially oriented pavilions, served as a point of departure for organizing the exhibits into 4 distinct constellations, each with its unique atmosphere and character. The evocative titles attached to its space, creation, womb, breath, and hive, suggest an entry point for engaging with key themes explored in each space. So in the next few slides, I will show you, I will focus on some works that served as conceptual anchors for navigating these spaces. And we start with the ceramics pavilion, the creation, yes, constellation, who serves as a symbolic space representing the deep connection between humans and the earth, as reflected in so many ancient myths that portray the first humans as being fashioned from earth and clay. The work that we see here is a ceramic vessel by Avner Zinger, consisting of an inner earthly core and a cracking egg-like coating, where cut out human silhouettes hover in the space, alluding to our disconnection from nature. Placing it on an Egyptian potter's wheel in the museum adds a cultural and historical layer to the work, referencing the myth of Chnum, the diviner potter, who fashioned humans on a potter's wheel and infused them with the spirit of life before placing them in their mother's womb. The next slide. Within this contextual arena, the ceramic vessel plays a central role, whole or fragmented, functional or allegorical. The vessel is often seen as a metaphor for the human body or as a container for the soul. So we see here some examples of artists who have thematized this in their work, the symbolism of the ceramic vessel, exploring themes of time, resilience, or the essence of the creative act. We can continue to the next slide. Tamar Or's site-specific installation along the Egyptian burial coffins associated with the time of the Exodus invokes the Egyptian practice of weighing the heart ceremony that determined the fate of the deceased. Instead, Tamar Or staged a ceremony of her own, but instead her scales of justice are suspended in a state of constant imbalance, leaving the human soul in a permanent state of restlessness and ambiguity in order to reflect a reality where the distinction between good and bad, truth and lie are increasingly impossible to make. We continue. So in a time when scientific advancements continue to push the boundaries of what is possible, Dvora Morag, preoccupied by the potential takeover of our entire identity, she engineers a machine for the preservation of the soul, raising questions about the role of technology and our ability to control it. And you see, it's a very low-tech machine that is consists of those suspended dried fruits and those pharmaceutical fials and the Erlenmeyer bottle. And it's intended for a mass preservation of our souls. The next slide, please. The Nehushtan Pavilion, which is dedicated to the 7th millennia history of the copper mines in Timna, holds a symbolic significance that goes beyond the historical context, because the comparison of the pavilion to a womb reflects the ancient people's perception of the earth as a nurturing source, giving birth to precious metals essential for human development and progress, and of mining as a way of harnessing its power. So what we see here in this slide is Nava Joyce Uzan's immersive video and sound installation featuring robotic creatures accompanied by digitally manipulated human voices that simulate the sounds of a beating heart and of work in the mines, bringing back to life the ancient mine while highlighting our constant intrusion into the body of the earth and the depletion of its resources. The next, I must drink. This is also a very interesting, iconic work, I would say, in this space. Moshe Targa's work embodies a personal and collective journey from Ethiopia to Israel. 3D printed black figures of cheap plastic are concealed under a rough bulk of white plaster to be gradually exposed in a pouring process. The sculpture's creation can be seen as a performative act that symbolizes the process of the artist's integration into Israeli society and building a Jewish Israeli identity as a Black man while maintaining his Ethiopian heritage. The next slide. The glass pavilion, which is dedicated to a material shaped by the power of the human breath, and to its extraordinary, dedicated to its extraordinary capacity for transmutation, offers a rich contextual background for works that provide multiple perspectives on the transformative nature of life. And not yet, Liora Kantarevich's large yellow sphere, wrapped in glittering gift ribbons, houses an hybrid winged creature. This embryonic, like embryo motif, recurrent in numerous creation myths, is a metaphor for potentiality. Typically, a celestial orb represents the birth of a divine primordial being that emerges from the chaos to hatch the universe. Suspended from the ceiling in the entrance gallery of the pavilion, this yellow sphere functions as a luminous source of energy, if you wish, signaling the start of a new beginning. We continue to the next slide. Evolution and metamorphosis, growth and decay are given expressions in works such as we see in this slide by Dana Bloom, The Human Gilded Shed, and in Itzan Yulzari's Still Wool self-portrait, in the guise of a creature that simultaneously forms and dissolves. And both are hovering over the next slide, over Dina Shenhaf's charred ruins of an ancient city, lying motionless in the heart of the pavilion, alluding to an archaeological past that has irretrievably been lost, but also to the cyclical nature of history, where the ruins and the relics of one era are the building blocks of the following. The next slide. The contrasting forces of life and death are explored in works such as Daphna Kaufmann's artistic intervention, whose crystalline, thorny plants, we see this arid landscape emerging from a Roman sarcophag. And inside this sarcophag, among the ancient vessels, we see her glass wasps, lamp-worked, realistic wasps, dead wasps, and pine needles interacting with the ancient burial finds to weave a personal narrative into the life cycles of living beings, objects, or of entire societies. The next slide. Well, here we have the measuring of our, how can I say, Oded Friedland here, who is also a surfer in his life. You went every day during the COVID lockdowns to the sea and measured the height of the waves daily. And his documentation practice was transformed into an artistic practice. And he took all these pop cycle sticks where he measured the height of the waves upon a scale and showcased and arranged them in a diary, in a visual diary. Somehow this work, again, this Sisyphic documentation of attending the nature is a work that encourages us, yes, to be more attentive, yes, to the sound of nature. And then we can continue. The Hive is the last pavilion that we have a dialogue conducted with contemporary works, is likened to a bustling hive within which artists from diverse backgrounds and cultures blend tradition with innovation, safeguarding disappearing practices, but also developing new materials and processes to meet contemporary demands while prioritizing sustainability and ecological consciousness. So this is a close-up from a video projected in this space. We can continue to the next one. This is the hive that I visualized and arranged this slide to give you a sense of the different works that are showcased in this space. And we go to the next slide, where we see those large-scale projections of the video of Anna Fromchenko's, who entered literally with her camera inside an abandoned beehive. And it is accompanied by the buzz of the absent bees that envelops the space and urges to confront the reality that we have created. Whereas, the next slide, in the two walls, flanking the entrance, we see Rona Giladi Wanu's and Shachar Wanu's sustainable beehive model integrated into the walls of the pavilion. And this is a model based on ancient tradition from beehives that were built in the Second Temple period in Israel. So we've seen a series, we can continue the slide. We've seen a series of thematic capsules, yet throughout the entire exhibition, the multiplicity of voices seems to compose a collectively written text presented in fragments, inviting us to piece them together, make connections, and construct meaning. Once it's a biennale about craft and design, I want the last slides to be some remarkable projects that highlight a range of directions that the worlds of craft and design are currently exploring. So here we see Gal Kuflik's and Yam Benadiva's project, who engage in a fascinating dialogue between the physical and the virtual realms, examining the ways they can interact and influence each other. So on the right, on the bottom right, Gal Kuflik's ceramic bodies capture moments from a virtual realm, solidifying them in the physical state, whereas in response, Yam Benadiva enhances these static forms with movement and new textures and materialities in a parallel hyper-realist mirror world of the metaverse with the use of VR glasses and digital tools. The next slide is in a unique design paradigm. Sharon Moro challenges the traditional production process by cultivating her own materials, such as food, textiles, and objects. The objects we see here are 100% natural, produced in what she calls the autonomous felting process, in which edible seeds and roots combined with wool fiber continue to grow, felting and interlocking with one another in a symbiotic process until the shape the object's final appearance. So with this approach, Sharon Moro promotes the potential for a sustainable and organic design and a symbiotic relationship between humans and nature. The next slide. Here, the Chinese master of Suzhou embroidery, Yao Huifen, has produced 3 versions of a traditional scene from a painting from the 13th century in different embroidery techniques. And well, the thematics is really very appropriate. We see a skeleton that is manipulated like a puppet, like a robot. And then the next slide, we see a project that she collaborates with the mathematics department in the Tsinghua University in Beijing, where they develop a robotic embroiderer programmed to act as an apprentice to Huifen by learning her special strokes and stitches the work of this robot is totally different from that of a CNC embroidery machine, in that it can learn from a special master the specific stitches, yes, and the gestures, including the speed and the weight of his needles. And so after a period of learning, the robot will be able to embroider new works in the style of each and every master. The last project I want to show you is the next slide. I don't want to show you, I want to hand over to Rakefet, which also will talk about another unique paradigm of synergy and dialogue, demonstrating how design can be less individually centered, more attentive, and more collaborative. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Henrietta. We'll move directly now to the presentation from Rakefet, which builds off of this incredible interdisciplinary group. Rakefet, I know we have a short time left, but I want to give you an opportunity to really take us deeper into what your project developed and what it's like to have that many people working together on a project like this.
Okay, so I'll start. I'm about to tell you about Chiluf Chomarim, which is in a freestyle translation is Material Flow Collective. And we're a group of designers, artists, and lecturers of design that have been working together since 2017. And it was started as a part of academic research as a response to the socioeconomic crisis. And the concept of the group was really to look for alternative ways of promoting holistic ecological discourse through art and design. So before I'm going to show you the work, I want to say just like a couple of sentences about the philosophy of the group behind what we're doing, and especially in light of this title of the Biennale, what is the measure of man? And I want to take you for a minute to the concept of the Anthropocene, which you probably are familiar with, the idea that was coined by Cruzen and Stromer in 2000, claiming that there is no other species in the history of Earth that brought us such dramatic changes in geology and ecosystems on the planet. And I really like this diagram, which really compare the timeline of the beginning of life on Earth with 24 hours clock. And as we see, the human modern life is here for only 4 seconds, okay? I think that's really interesting measurement when we think about our humanity. So going back to the academic ideas is that after going to environmental school, very quickly I realized that the thing is that everything is connected, that we can't really separate humanity from the rest of the living system, including plants, animals, earth, stones, and everything here. And when we talk about the environmental crisis, we really talk about social crisis. And we can't think of the environment without society, and of society without environment. I felt that we need to act ourselves, to heal ourselves, to acupuncture thing.
Rakefet, it looks like
the concept that really was.
It looks like Rakefet has frozen a bit on her screen. So what we might need to do is we'll switch to the slides manually, if we can do that, and we can just
really hear you well.
Yeah, I think you need to Rakefet, if you can, take off your slides and we'll run them so you can just speak over them. because you were breaking up on us.
Okay.
We have the ecological thinking slide up now.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay, it's all fadey. Okay. So the idea was, can we as a group can act as an ecosystem? And we adopted, of course, we're not the first one to think about that. And we're inspired by theoretical ideas of ecological thinking and concept that really defined ecological systems. And we were thinking, okay, but what can we do with those ideas? Could you please move to the next slide?
There we go.
Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a
Okay.
little bit, but we'll try to keep moving through the slides because we only have a few more minutes left. So go ahead and tell us.
Well, I'm waiting for the next slide, but I can't really see it. So anyway, so I'll keep speaking. Our ideas was really, we had this idea of a gift of material. The concept was that everyone in the group is going to give someone else a material, and someone else is going to do something with the material that and we kept on doing it for a while. And that's the one thing that gave us our name, Chiluf Chomarim, which means really materials exchange on one way. And when we were invited to the first Biennale at the Eretz Israel Museum in 2020, we were thinking about how can we act and show this new methodologies that we've developed. You can move on with the slides. And then we're thinking about organism 144, yeah, which is the concept was that each one of us is going to respond to another person in the group at least one time through the project. And the theoretical basic for this was manifestos that each one of us wrote. And you can move on to the next slide. You can see a bit of them. And we're reacting to one another through those concepts of the manifestos. And there's few slides that you can see the project that was up on the observation tower that Henrietta mentioned before. You can move on for the next few photographs of the project from last year. And if you're interested in that, you can look up, I think we're going to put on the chat the link to the Biennale. There was a post at the blog about this project. When we came to this, you can move on with the slides. When we came to the second Biennale, we were thinking about creating a mobile. I thought we're really representing the way we work as like hanging and depending on each other. And we decided to exchange our manifestos. And we did a lottery of the manifestos, and each one of us got someone else's manifesto. And then we start talking, and that's how we meet together, we exchange ideas and concept, and then we go back, we show our sketches, and we continue to talk. And that's how we start working. And you can move on. You'll see some slides from the work in progress. You can see a lot of different ideas and different materials of the group. You can move on to the next. And here on the left, you see, for example, Maya, which is a fashion designer. She used the foot as a measure of man, and she started taking all those old lost socks and creating this new outfit out of them. And the interesting thing is that the socks manufacturing is one of the most advanced, sophisticated technology on one hand, and on the other hand, it really, their lifetime is very short. They get wrapped easily and they get lost, which is really similar to the way our society today is the one-time use of things, very short time. Next to it, you can see work in progress of Michal was reacting to Maya, creating those shapes that looks like clothes cutouts. And she created this, she was dealing with artificial and natural material, and she created this long vegetative structure that's made out of those fashionable shapes. On the right, you can see Yuval's object with a hand-knitted pieces made out of old bedding set. And every part of it is the size of her hand. She used her palm hand as a measurement and claiming that she's a woman, she's an artist, she's a very specific person, and trying to react to the concept of measurement of man, which is usually male and generic. You can move on to the next slide. Here on the top, you can see Eyal's work, which is, he was reacting to the manifesto of Yuval that was talking about how can we design without material. And he went to his studio and decided to work with dust. He was thinking, I'm going to use non-material, and he created those interesting shape that looks like fruits like chamun made out of dust. Please move on. Here you see us putting it all together. It was quite exciting and quite hard. It was very, very hard, like 8 meters high. And we're not allowed to go on the ladder. So we had other people to tell us, we had to tell people what to do. Okay, please move on to the next slide. Very hard to photograph object. And I want to say a few more things about the other things. On the left bottom, you can see Ariel video project. What he did, he entered an artificial intelligence software, the text of the group's manifests, and it was the inspiration for this visual video. And so the artificial intelligence is becoming also part of our chiluf chomarim, of material exchange. Please move on. Move on to the next slide. Okay, here in the middle, you see part of a SAC project. It's a blow up of this image engraving from the 16th century medical encyclopedia of men holding his skin. But here, instead of the skin, the person holds the lines of the code that produce the digital image that we all see. So actually, he's holding his own image in his hand. And on the right, you see the piece that I did, which reacting to Tal's manifestos, who was talking about making the nature religion so we can preserve it. And what I did is sort of a mascot. I embroidered and the embroidered text is an opening from Henry David Thoreau, a book called Walking from 1851, when she speaks in the praise of nature in contrast to the civil culture. And the birds are symbolizing the group members. You can move on. Please move on to the next slide. Okay, here on the left, you can see the hologram. It's Ophir's piece. There's holograms of the group members. The images comes and goes, like break into pieces and like disappearing and coming back. And the next slide, you can see on the left, Ayelet's object, which are little glass bottles contain concrete, sand, and water. Those bottles are remnants from her research in the cement laboratory, where she does her PhD. And here they serve as weights for crafting bobbin lace, which is an old tradition of weaving. And her research, she tries to examine interaction between concrete strength with textile, but here the weight of the bottles transform into fabric creation. So, and they're also combined in the mobile, like balancing things out. And on the right, you can see this floating tray, and that you see on the bottom, you can see the look from above. And there's electrodes of the Buddha hands placed on X-rays with teddy bear and medical stethoscope. And here is a metaphor for human emotion and listening ability. The electrodes symbolize the human heart. And here, Orit's manifest is really about listening as part of the ecological issue. Here she echoes the idea of how do I listen to your heart? And the next slide, on the right, you see one of Tal's hanging. These are, she made 12 bird nests, and there are scattering in the installation. She referred to birds that I did in the last round. And her idea was that it's sort of an invitation for the birds to come and participate in the human group activity, therefore also changing the balance of the mobile. And apparently one day I was there and was a myna, Indian myna, got into and did exactly what she wanted. Okay, you can move on. You see like a couple more views of the object, which is really, really hard to photograph because it's packed and small. One more. From above, when you go up the stairs to the Rothschild, it gives you a sense of this space that has been created there. And move on. And this is us, a very rare photograph, all of us together at the museum with there was another visitor who took a picture of us, and that's it.
Well, I am thrilled that we're closing on a slide that showed some of the people who actually helped create it. So if we're speaking of the measure of man and woman today who came together, as Henrietta described early on, to attempt something on a much larger scale at a moment where perhaps it was needed even more, to bring together science and art and technology and philosophy and history and religion, and to do so in a way that allows us to reflect, that allows us to both celebrate art and this moment of time that is a part of a much larger clock. I just love looking at that clock and the 4 seconds that humanity was allotted to make some contribution that will hopefully enrich people's lives and enrich the whole planet, even though we've got a long way to go, arguably, to achieve those aims. So thank you for bringing this to us. For those of you I mentioned early on, and thanks for our audience who stayed with us. We went over a little bit. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we are so appreciative both to Henrietta, Rakefet, and all of their over close to 300 different participants who have work that was that is currently on display. It will be through November. It's the Eretz Israel Museum, which is, for those of you that have been there, you know it's not far from Tel Aviv University. Get over there. If you're going to be in Israel, please see it for yourself. You could see, we could barely show you the contours of this, of the various pavilions. Go see it in person. We couldn't even fit, as Rakefet was describing in a photograph, some of the height and the length of some of the exhibits you're seeing, but hopefully you got a taste of it. So please, we hope it whet your appetite. We hope you'll share this video clip with others who might be interested and give them the opportunity to see in person as well. Program note here that we are not back next Sunday, but we're back on the 30th on a Wednesday for a program of collectors from North America and Israel for Israel memorabilia. We will be looking at the 75 years of Israel. That's a very small piece in the overall clock of time, but nonetheless a very large one in the milestones of Eretz Israel. So we will have those collectors sharing their memorabilia, scrapbooks, and other things in a very creative way. We hope you'll come back and join us. And also, many of you know, every year we celebrate in New York the AIFL Gala on the connection between these two great countries. We'll be doing it again on November 27th. So if you have any plans to be in New York around November 27th, we hope you'll join us. We'll be honoring two titans of industry that have collaborated between America and Israel. That's the Israel aerospace industry and Boeing Industries in the United States. So a lot to digest. Hopefully for those of you that are in Southern California and elsewhere, we hope we distracted you in a positive way today. We hope that you'll have a safe Sunday, and we'll see everybody back on the 30th at the end of the month for our program on the 75th of Israel. L'hitraot.